The story begins on Prince Hyle's 15th birthday, Prince Svile's 17th. The king held a grand feast that attracted honorable nobles from all regions. The king gifted the young prince with his own territory, an island that someone will rule. But instead he felt deep fear and dread immediately after the ceremony. On the 10th day since he sailed with the royal ship towards the designated land, as they approached the island, the crew heartlessly cast him out. They threw him a coracle and a wooden paddle haphazardly, leaving him without ensuring his safe arrival, and then the ship hurried back to the capital, solidifying his fate. Struggling to navigate through dangerous coral reefs, the journey to the island was fraught with sea monsters and pirates. Returning to the capital, he was mocked by his brothers for his banishment, fully understanding the mockery as a reflection of his lower status, a mistake. However, what is even more important is that each descendant of the royal family is born with a symbol that signifies the strength they possess. Their magnificent symbols, such as the swords of the gods or the magic scepters of the kings, bestow upon them the corresponding mighty powers according to their crest titles. However, it seems that it does not give them any clear strength, even though they have tried their best. Their family and the royal palace continue to mock and belittle them on the day of the ceremony. He had planned to express his grievances to his father, but instead, he was exiled to prison and now finds himself on an island where he contemplates that facing punishment for betrayal may be better than this remote exile. He finds a suitable place to anchor his boat and will use his wind magic to slow down and prevent damage. Unfortunately, his magic is very weak, so it seems only useful for chasing flies. With determination, he finally secures the boat and begins unloading his belongings on the beach as he moves his supplies into the nearest cave. The dreadful silence engulfed him as she discovered that the cave was filled with human skeletons and skulls, trying to ignore the horror. Quickly, Sei arranged his belongings near the cave entrance and then sat down calmly to observe the calm sea view in front of him. As negative thoughts threatened to creep into her mind, she forcefully pushed them away and resolved to make the best of the situation, even though it seemed unpromising. Planning seemed futile, and she felt stuck, realizing that inactivity would not solve anything. He decided to start immediately with what he could do. His supplies were only enough for a month, so fishing and finding a source of fresh water became his top priorities. His first task was to clean the cave and find a place to bury the bodies. As he reached for the axe to start, a sudden sound echoed in his head, touching his forehead. He now realized that he was holding an object that could be immediately utilized as her guide at the top of the cave. His palm lit up, revealing its function. Initially confused as to why this power was only now active, he remembered that her true power could never emerge in the palace. His voice urged him to use the symbol as an aid to enhance his skills that could only be activated inside the cave. The symbol then optimized the extraction process in a dark cave that suddenly lit up, the brighter area indicating where to mine. Following the guidance, he would strike the illuminated spot with his pickaxe, even though being inside the night vision effect allowed him to work more efficiently without realizing how long time had passed. Thanks to the Cave King's skill, he could automatically store all mined items regardless of their weight. He had already collected 168 impressive stones, and even the symbol itself, then suggested using the collection skill for the mined items, and continued today from the starting point. He now dug deeper than 10 meters while resting. He was surprised to see the arrangement of items in his inventory: iron ore, copper ore, and even gold ore. Curious. He accessed the mining support function and investigated the encyclopedia, discovering that he had some amazing minerals. The mineral that enhances magical power and the turtle stone that extends life for one day. He couldn't believe that the symbol he once thought was useless could produce such a treasure, especially since Shield turned out to be far from the remote desert he thought would give him more energy than before. Heel continued to dig, completely forgetting to find a boat to leave the island after more than 2 hours. Heel made Dove 30 meters further to diversify his rock collection even more. There were some differences in the quantity of 90 minerals and only 6 turtle stones. A voice from the peak asked if Hyle wanted to use 90 minerals. Nodding, Heel let the symbol activate for a minute without any apparent change, leaving Heel scratching his head wondering how to detect the increase in his power, because he didn't feel any difference. He decided to try using his wind magic to clean the cave. As he spoke, a golden shield appeared, and a gust of wind swept all the bones out of the cave. He was stunned with just 90 stones. He has become this strong since he stood bewildered. The sturdy and wobbly creature suddenly leaped towards him since then. Arriving at the Sheol coral reef and finding the power of the King Crest Outlook Cave has changed today, he mined with the shells of small, slimy creatures that hit him a few days ago. The shell is a monster that can be tamed in theory. Taming is a skill that makes the monster obey its master, but he had never witnessed it directly. He had completed the taming process by naming his new friend since he met the creature in the cave. He named it Shell. Initially, he had low expectations for Shell, assuming it was just a mindless creature, but Shell proved to be intelligent and quite useful. It could change into various forms and understand healing commands through movement. After a breakthrough in mining, his speed has doubled his mineral extraction over the past few days, with his magic now enhancing basic needs such as food. Food is no longer a concern. After working all day, he returned to the cave to rest during his excavation. He encountered about 10 other slimes, but communication with them was not as smooth as with the Shell that seemed to be uniquely in sync with him. The next morning, Shell enthusiastically tried to wake up Tumit following Shell's directions. Tumit immediately woke up and ran down towards a pile of rocks where he found people lying unconscious nearby. He realized that they were goblins. He suspected that their boat had crashed into the reef and been swept to the shore by strong waves, although there had long been differences between humans and goblins. Tumit couldn't bear to let them die, so he used a healing spell to bring all 3 of them to a cave to rest, instructing Shell to stand guard while he continued mining. He thought that if the goblins attacked him when they woke up, it wouldn't be a problem. As his magic grew stronger, dispelling his worries, he focused on his work. In the morning, the worker erased all worries of the day. The bounty included refining stones and the glowing stone, just as Heel planned to continue mining. The Shell reported that the goblin had awakened when he and the Shell returned to the cave entrance. They heard the goblins debating, the group consisting of a big man, a young girl, and an old man with a large staff. Seeing Heel pointing a weapon towards him as a warning, the old man understood their language. The girl turned out to be a princess, trying to stop the big man from threatening Heel, their savior. Speaking calmly, feeling fear, they realized their shadow through the transparent shell looked quite frightening. He decided to show his good intentions using his power. He would soon catch and cook fish to offer to the big goblin. So surprised that he began to speculate wildly, suddenly the princess held her chest in pain and Heel collapsed. At first he thought the princess had not yet recovered from her injury due to the stone fragment, but in reality she was cursed, which was slowly draining her life. Seeing the situation becoming more tense and terrifying, he wanted to help by using his magical objects, a combination of the purifying stone to remove the curse and the turtle stone to magically extend life. Reviving the young princess, Ray the big goblin Elvin immediately prostrated himself, apologizing to Heel for his previous actions. His behavior will reveal that the goblins come from the Belden tribe. Princess Ray is the daughter of King Rodan. Elvin is a warrior and an old man. Varys is a wizard. They were eventually captured because Beldum was destroyed by the orcs with their kingdom. Families were killed and neighboring tribes turned a blind eye. Humanity shunned them as survivors like them saw the new horizon but were stranded. Reed knew his life would soon end, but felt relieved knowing he could pass peacefully rather than suffer in pain. It was the beginning for R to give up because he was confident in his mining speed. He believed he could gather enough turtle stones to sustain him for a year. Mining alone felt lonely, so when El and Var offered help, he welcomed it. Heel was somewhat worried because El and Vari were not used to mining, but he could share some of the monster taming skills he had with them. That night, Heel discussed the topic of taming with the goblin group. Not only did Elvin and Vari respond positively, but Rai also wanted to participate. The taming process was successful. El became Elvin, varied into Varys, and R turned into Renna after dinner. The 4 of them ventured into the cave. Because goblins couldn't see in the dark, Heel shoes gave them a glowing stone. He demonstrated mining several times with shells, and some other lines helped collect minerals from that day in the cave that was once cold became a warmer place. In the dark corner, he was once physically and verbally attacked. When trying to save a dragon, he was called worthless and even threatened with burning. Heelin. A startled call from fragments of this past memory. Rena worried that the heel were working too hard and might not be mentally stable. The Hyles smiled reassuringly in themselves. It had been 4 days since the heel met the goblins together. The group built some useful things, a toilet, a water tank, and a simple kitchen. Today, Rhea treated everyone with apple pie, skillfully turning the ingredients brought by the heel to the island into delicious food. Elvin and Varys were very enthusiastic about mining not only as physical exercise, but also because it helped prolong Ren's life, even though their lives had improved not yet stable. The only staple food they had was fish, and their clothes were only 2 or 3 sets that were worn out due to continuous work. Hugh desires a passing ship so that he can exchange some gems for supplies, setting aside his worries. He continues his mining efforts. He needs more turtle stones for Rena and wants to store the minerals for future use when mining. He stumbles upon a cave where the stones emit an orange light similar to the sun's rays, the ground beneath it soft, unlike the rocky cave. Suddenly, a chill creeps up his spine. He looks up and is startled to see a giant spider hanging to his right above him. Not wanting today to be remembered as the day of his death, he raises his hand to recite a mantra, but the spider jumps away and rushes back to its nest. It turns out the spider was only trying to protect its territory from the intrusion of his mining activities. Surprisingly, its symbol warns him that the spider is a creature that can be tamed. Shortly after, the spider and its family return to the main cave. Elvin, Varys, and Rhienna are frightened by the spider, but Hugh introduces the spider named Taran, and its parent announces that they will become new members of the group. Varys is surprised by the size of the spiders in the mainland cave. The largest spider is only about 1/2 meter long, venomous, and very dangerous. Varys also mentions that the soil in the spider's nest is very good for farming, which is a shame because most of the island is rocky and unsuitable for agriculture, inspiring healing, directing everyone to the newly made tunnel, which is too narrow for Taran, so his path is widened, taking advantage of testing the new abilities of King Gua. Upon reaching level 2, he will gain the ability to manipulate the shape of earth and stones during mining crafts by synthesizing and processing materials and enhancing the night vision of other tame creatures. While construction abilities are limited inside the cave, crafting can be done anywhere. The next day, they begin their plan to improve the Elven Island, and Varys creates more metal equipment like him and Rhienna's axe. Rhienna takes over the task of weaving silk from spider silk. Taran handles farming, and his descendants realize their mining potential with Heel even surpassing Heel in seed-digging speed. The man planted seeds in his nest soil, which grew very quickly. The seeds turned into apple trees laden with fruit in minutes. Orange stones in crevices known as sunstones accelerate the growth of flora and fauna. These stones need to be served so that he can entrust Rena with their management and agriculture. With each member already accustomed to their roles, they can focus on mining more turtle stones. The stones he has used so far have restored 5 years of Rena's life, but she is only 15 years old and her whole life is ahead of her. He will remind himself to work harder again later. He will find the dragon gem with the power to rise again from death. He asks for Tariena's help to find more, but they do not find any other. Suddenly, the elven voice echoed from above in a hurry, leaving the dragon gem and leaving the cave. The goblin tribe ship Belden approached the island of Helven Varys, and Rena were very happy because their relatives were still alive, thinking the goblins would soon leave to continue their journey to a new land. Taran gave them a pouch of gold as a farewell gift. Elven Varys and Rena exchanged confused looks. They considered Taran as their leader, and had no desire to leave. Rhienna expressed a desire for Taran to join them. Even though leaving Sheol had been the initial healing plan, she no longer felt the desire to leave. The 3 goblins, with a unanimous voice, decided to stay on the island if Taran did not accompany them at that time. Then a huge wave suddenly hit, overturning Taran's boat. Thinking even if they managed to reach the location at most, only a few could be saved. Not wanting to feel helpless anymore, he decided to dive into the sea to save the survivors. Taran was sure there was still hope. He reminded himself that he was the king in this place. The symbol in his hand activated using 8,879 magical stones to freeze the waves. After successfully disabling the waves, he signaled to Elvin to walk on the ice to reach the people struggling in the slippery ice, making it difficult for Elvin to move. Fortunately, Taran's ability to stick to walls allowed him and his descendants to help Elvin reach the overturned boat shell, also collecting other slime to transform into a living boy so that everyone could survive. The rescue operation took almost 2 hours. He would freeze the waves, bring people to the beach, and then heal them with his magic. Thanks to him, everyone was saved. Elvin was deeply touched, hugging his daughter, partly because she was still alive. Rihanna didn't know how to thank him, simply smiling and saying that they had all worked together to save the people. He didn't do it alone. The conversation flowed smoothly until he saw the bearded man standing behind them. This man was not on the boat, and no one had seen him before Taran approached to start a conversation. But the man quickly turned around and walked towards the group eating grilled fish near the fire. His behavior was strange, but Taran didn't think much of it. The next day, Heel personally created 41 rooms inside the cave for everyone. The entire Belden tribe agreed to be tamed by Heel, despite mentioning the names of 205 people, which proved to be dizzying. The once deserted island became bustling with activity. In the following days, under his leadership, everyone dove into production, watching Rihanna's hard work with full consideration as she prepared juice for them. She had taken grape seeds from the boat and used the sunstone to accelerate their growth. Currently, the fruit trees were limited, but Rihanna believed that in a few years they would have the entire orchard. Everything worked harmoniously except for an old, quiet, and messy man whom everyone called Mappa. Mappa did not participate in any work. He just stood in the tool-making area, inspecting items and then placing them with a disapproving expression. The craftsman was so annoyed that he threw an axe at Mappa and challenged him to try working. Mappa suddenly changed. He stepped into the workshop area with expertise, handling every stage of the process and quickly making a very nice pickaxe. The craftsmen in the workshop were skeptical of Mappa's product, so the head craftsman personally tested 2 pickaxes, including the one made by Mappa. The pickaxe made by Mappa was truly outstanding, able to split a large stone in one go. She pondered who this mysterious man was, then suddenly remembered the dragon gem she left in the cave while exploring deeper inside. She saw an empty hole connecting the events and suspected that the gem had revived the skeleton once owned by Lin in that hole, and that skeleton was none other than Mappa, with quality equipment. The coastline was quickly leveled and the boat was repaired. She would make Ed and everyone else mine and get more slime. One concern bothered her. The turtle stone became rare. The current supply will only extend Rena's life for another 10 years. Determined to extend her life, she will continue her mining efforts. In one expedition, she found a room containing stones she had never seen before. The red stone, hearing that it could be used as the core of artificial creatures. The yellow stone, the transformation stone, has the function to evolve monsters into different species. So that night, she brought the transformation stone to the varieties for a varied explanation, explained only by giving an example of a common goblin. Desiring the power to transform using a stone into a goblin pig, or to hide deep in the forest by turning into a forest goblin according to what is provided by the Creststone King's Cave, this stone transforms monsters into new bodies and reactivates their lives. Elvin and Varys hesitated to try. Rena wanted to, but was afraid to adapt to significant changes with the encouragement of Renette's heel shoes. She finally agreed to evolve while holding the stone. She whispered her desire to stand by his side. A burst of light enveloped him, and from a small goblin girl less than a meter tall, she transformed into a very beautiful young woman. Heel slowly opened his eyes, stunned for a few seconds before suddenly remembering Rhianna's evolution, and was amazed. Rhianna's voice and face appeared right above the heel, startling him to sit up early when Rhea had evolved into a beautiful form. Mappa was very surprised, his heel bleeding standing near him, unable to avoid it, and fainting shortly after. Mappa and the heel were taken to a small room. The heel had already woken up while Mappa was fast asleep, holding the heel's shell, regaining his composure to speak with Rihanna, surprised that his evolution had made him look so human. Rihanna admitted that she never liked her old self, who used to get sick often as a child. Her body didn't develop properly, and her siblings teased her. Even though her parents initially intervened, they gradually began to ignore this issue when using the transformation stone. Rena wanted to become more beautiful, but this also made her feel guilty. She would reassure Rihanna by telling her that she had also changed since coming to the island. There's nothing wrong with wanting to change for the better, and it would be futile not to use the stone to achieve what she desired. Rihanna sincerely thanked for the healing and vowed to dedicate her life to charity without their knowledge. Mappa had woken up and watched the making of the heel, very embarrassed. She hoped she could disappear. Ryan's evolution surprised the entire tribe. They couldn't believe that the princess had turned into someone so charming. Rihanna's skilled beauty with her hands even knitted her own dress. Besides helping diligent people, she learned magic and martial arts. Seeing Rihanna's hard work and willingness to perform difficult tasks, Heel felt she was an ambitious person. Varys was caught staring at Rihanna in awe and praised her for having sharp eyes, noticing the farmer's mark on Rina's foot like a human also possessed by the goblin race. Varys's magical mark, for example, had the Witch King's mark on his palm, but no matter how powerful the mark was, it was useless because goblins couldn't use their magical marks. He will say something, but Varys changes the topic of conversation. Varys proposes a plan to expand the island by filling in the sea, providing more fertile land and more space for children to play. Considering he can use his craftsmanship skills outside the cave, he will soon activate his emblem. After synthesizing and processing the materials, he will place the stones where needed. Then he uses magic to extract water that fills the area with rocks and gravel, then covers the surface with spider dust. In a short time, the sea surface changes into a vast expanse of land. The children are delighted and quickly rush out to play on the new land. However, the peace does not last long when a giant bird dives down, grabs the map, and swallows it whole. This terrifying predator bird quickly appears in the sky, organizing an evacuation into the cave. The full elven princess is trying to help a little child escape, but unfortunately they stumble and fall. A predator bird dives towards the falling children, but at the last moment Elven bravely appears and beheads the animal with an axe in both hands. Elven angrily protects everyone by not letting a single bird near their heel, and Rena quickly joins to help the two of them, forming a protective shield on both sides while Elven continues his fierce attack in the middle. Varys shouted that all the villagers had successfully entered the cave safely, and summoned a stone figure to create a large stone golem called Golem to guard the cave entrance that had been swallowed by the bird. Mappa Cho couldn't digest it. Mappa was vomited out, and luckily the shell was there to catch it following his advice. Elven used a rope made of spider silk to trap the bird's feet, and then called a snowstorm that successfully drove away the intruders. Rena wanted to run to the side of the cave, but she was overwhelmed by fear, her legs trembling, and she couldn't walk steadily. The cave did not mock her. This was the first time she fought a monster, and she felt the same fear. The villagers rushed out to celebrate their safety, boosting confidence in their leadership abilities. That night, a feast featuring 7 dishes of predator bird meat was held on the island, a celebration that had never happened before. The cave had never tasted monster meat before, so he was curious and worried at the same time. He tried the roasted thigh, and the delicious taste of the soup immediately made him exclaim. Praise, each part of the bird's body felt different. Wings and legs felt like chicken, breast like beef, and shoulder like pork. While all these birds posed significant dangers, catching them could solve their food supply problem to ensure safety. He made Gollum stay alert. Varys's task, with his rich experience, proposed the construction of walls and watchtowers to ensure maximum security. He agreed and took over the construction during their discussion. He noticed Elven Princess Fule staring at him when he realized he was being watched. He put down the chicken leg he was eating and walked towards her. He put his hands on his hips and introduced himself fully, mentioning the name given by him. Confused, he asked what she needed and received a question about why she was so strong. He explained that it was all because of mining. He had found a stone that could enhance magical and physical strength. F's eyes sparkled in disbelief that such a stone existed on Rena Island. He clarified that if Fool wanted to use magic, she needed a transformation stone to evolve. Fule immediately agreed to undergo evolution, but was unaware of the scarcity of the stone. Elvin quickly intervened to temper F's expectations. He understood F's desire to be stronger, having a father like Elvin. It was natural for children to want to imitate their parents. With Elvin's permission, he could mine freely. He went off to search for a map to ask him to make a pickaxe. He also promised Elvin that he would prove to be useful. Rena was also determined to give everything when he announced that he would use 800 magic stones on him. Today was a very special day as the residents of Sheol Island completed their homes. It was an unforgettable first day on the island for him. A few days later, Heel visited the cooling warehouse project initiated by Rena. All the predator bird meat was stored there to prevent spoilage. Mappa disliked the equipment there and complained to have it fixed. The workshop continued to significantly improve, enhancing its product quality. Elvin and Varys maintained their roles as Safety Island team instructors. In the fall, he was truly surprised by his understanding of mining during his work. He noticed that the caves lacked ventilation, which could cause gas poisoning or lung disease due to cold dust. He revealed that he had a miner's gift, Mark, which, although not as strong as King Crest Cave, still gave him significant mining abilities. His experience made him more productive and efficient during one of their mining sessions. The extraordinary expressions of the heel became dark. He was honestly somewhat afraid of his father. He felt that his simple strength could easily be overshadowed by his family's power. A few minutes later, the full excavation into the underground space in the vast cave revealed stone statues arranged in a circle. One of the statues opened its eyes and launched a magical attack on the heel, and quick reflexes allowed him to conjure a shield that protected them from danger. He realized that this was a golem, but not like the one he created. This character possesses magical abilities. The stone figures around him begin to move closer to his heel and surround him. The heel summon a gust of wind that causes the golems to collide with each other and shatter. He then commands the shells to return and tells everyone to immediately stop mining. Fule finds a stone, but it is not the stone that suddenly changes. Mappa appears very surprised and almost ignores it until the point of a heart attack. Mappa joyfully walks towards Deb and takes the golem sword to reattach it. The heel tries to lift one of the swords but cannot move it from the ground. His emblem indicates that he cannot collect anything other than minerals and materials that have already been mined. The heel then uses his ice axe to shatter the sword, the material known as chalum, a legendary resource. The heel wonders why he cannot lift it. When they return, the heel finds everyone trying to lift the sword that Mappa has stretched all his muscles and successfully lifted the sword made of 300 or to knowledge. But the sword slips from his hand in a minute and falls on his head. Elvin was fortunate to find that his injury was not serious, rushing to embrace him while shedding tears and expressing his concerns about his father's heel. Mappa carefully observed the situation, despite appearing simple. Mappa was a dwarf from a legendary race known for their amazing physical strength, mysterious techniques, and noble spirits. While everyone was busy watching to see if Elvin could lift the Mappa sword, Mappa quietly crafted the Aura Chalum axe to heal him. Not stopping at just the Mappa axe, Mappa continued to make many other tools from the rare materials in the following days. Life on the island was relatively peaceful for Elvin, and a group of men who often practiced battles. On the backside of the island, following full advice, Heel had installed several ventilation holes, a ventilation system powered by tidal energy and designed by Mappa. Now operational and full, they continued their mining work to ensure everyone's safety and prevent incidents like the previous golem attack. They decided to create a supporting golem using artificial hearthstone combined with magic stones. Usually Mappa would handle the composition, but because they needed it produced quickly, they had to take charge. He took over all the steps of exchanging ideas, making sketches, and after some struggle, completing the blueprint for the elite golem warrior, imagining a series of weapons to equip the super warriors so engrossed he didn't realize Rihanna approaching Rihanna came to lead through the tunnel featuring magical stones to the secret location of the fruit garden. Showed her another in an instant. She used her art skills to split a coconut, and make an amazing drink. Not only refreshing, but also very healthy. Elvin approached to show off his shiny trophy. He had just claimed the devil snail shell. Its shell was very hard resistant even to Elvin's axe. Elvin successfully defeated the devil snail by prying off part of its shell with his very dangerous foot. After extracting its shell, Varys extracted the creature's essence into a curious tong. Mappa dipped his finger into the substance and tasted it. Less than 5 seconds later, he fainted, trembling. Varys jokingly said that depending on the concentration, the extracted essence can be a deadly poison, but can mainly be used as a poison several days later. The healing project to create the elite warrior golem was completed. He has made 15 golems, including the old ones, equipping them with defense mantras and one of the 4 basic types of magic enhanced by incorporating magical stones into them on the day Elvin took the warrior G for training, coinciding with their invasion of demon snails. They climbed the partially built wall to penetrate the city. According to Varys' experience, the creature is resistant to fire and ice, but vulnerable to lightning. Wanting to personally direct the golem unit, he would ask Elvin to let him take over command. He also called Rhianna to join because of her ability to cast lightning spells. Together, they led the golems into battle as the demon snails breached the city wall. He ordered 2 warriors to spread Rhianna's shield magic immediately. Releasing his lightning mantra, he attacked the invading snails, shooting incendiary shots at the other snails reaching the top, opening their shells, and spraying their digestive fluid onto their opponent's heel. Dan Rhenna combined their powers to create a shield and lightning spell that effectively cooked the snail army in battle quickly, thanks to the power of the golem and Rhenna among the snail carcasses, one still moving and spitting poison at the heel. Seeing this, Rhenna rushed to protect it and they both fell, Helen tightening her grip on her axe and crushing the snail. Because Rena had protected her heel, she absorbed all the poison from the creature thanks to detoxification and timely healing Hill. She quickly recovered after that. Heel saw the pearl inside the snail, took it, and gave it to Rhenna. Without knowing much about the value of jewelry and thinking it was suitable for Rhianna, she gifted it to her. Rhenna blushed and, embarrassed, returned the pearl to her heel and ran a few days later under the protection of the golem heel and continued their mining for lunch that day. Rhea treated everyone to 7 dishes made from demon snails. The snails had provided them with food shells and dyes. One stormy day, a corpse floated near the coral reef today. Heel and Varys visited the fabric workshop thanks to the dye extracted from the liquid of demon snails. They successfully produced fabric in various colors. Elvin appears quite serious when inviting Keel to the new party, cleaning up the area on the island. Upon arrival, Keel is shocked to see the body of an orc with its arm severed. This morning, the Elven troops have found the body based on the markings on it. Elvin is convinced that it belongs to the tribe that destroyed the other Belden. The goblins quickly become angry, hurling insults and physically assaulting the corpse. Elvin wants to stop them, but feels he has no right to interfere because orcs are the enemies of the goblins. Rhianna rushes out to stop them, ashamed of such behavior towards the Belden tribe. Even though the orcs have killed her people, she refuses to stoop to their level, stating that Tumit is their leader, so he must decide what happens on the island. She realizes that she has been enlightened. She is their leader and needs to act as a leader. She acknowledges the goblins' anger, but expresses her desire not to mock the dead. After speaking, Tumit bows deeply, apologizing for his words. The goblins are surprised, quickly helping Tumit to lift his head. Regarding the orc's body, Tumit requests a visit to handle the burial. The situation becomes strange when less than half an hour later, another hour later, more bodies begin to wash ashore. So far, 24 bodies have been taken, including the body of Cobalt from the Wolf tribe, who allied with the orcs to attack the goblins. Elvin finds this very strange. All bodies show signs of severe battle wounds. Their bodies are full of bite marks. One body is missing, its lower part looks crushed due to intense heat. While it cannot be confirmed yet, these bodies seem to have been attacked by something powerful. Elvin suggests increasing their vigilance and preparing defenses against armed ships, then asks Varys to take care of burying the bodies, while Elvin handles defense by running together in search of items that can be used from the old ship and other floating debris on the island. This task is crucial for survival on an island where everyone can only belong to me when searching. They both hear a sound coming from a chest buried under the debris. Tumit uses magic to open the chest as its lid opens. A small, round, white puppy runs straight towards Tumit as he runs around before relieving itself on Riena's back. Riena scoops up the puppy, guessing it is a young cobalt. He hopes everyone will understand that the next day he will continue his mining work, even though he has no answers to the strange events that Elvin showed at that time. He can only focus on extracting raw materials. To protect the island, the amount of magical stones he will receive will decrease, but it may already be enough for him. He wants to enhance magic for Rena and be prepared if Elvin and Full need to use magic in the future. He will realize something. Like the seeds that have been collected in his storage box, wondering how the seeds could have gotten there. Fulla hurriedly said he wanted to pull him into the cave above. Inside the cave, the young cobalt wailed as Elvin, Terran, and Mappa tried to calm him down with full kicks. Elvin behind urged his father to stop making faces to calm the child when the kobold saw his heel. He immediately jumped into his arms while wagging his tail happily. Rena mentioned that the puppy might think the heel is his father's, and he urinated on him as a way to mark his territory. Varys checked the box and speculated that the box was equipped with a false bottom healing, then used magic to open the hidden compartment lock underneath. Reveal 3 history books of the Tease tribe, Tease technology, and the Tease Bible. Besides the books, there is a white stone known as the Memory Stone, which functions to store thoughts when the heel is about to ask Varys about it. He saw various troubled faces. The stone in the healer's hand glowed and projected a blurry image of the heel of the female animal skin, had broken the seal of the female animal skin chest, introduced herself as Alamina, the queen of the Tyus tribe, and also the mother of young Cobalt. The ship of the Tyus tribe was chased by the sea monster Leviathan, and they were truly exhausted after fighting the orcs that made them helpless. Alamina asked for healing and others to take care of her child. The only thing Alamina could offer them was 2 mighty warriors and 3 secret tum. She only had time to tell her child that she loved him very much before she disappeared. Elvin just clicked his tongue, leaving a few words behind, and leaving, his eldest son had fallen in battle between Belden and Tiber, even though his enemy's child was now among them. Elvin, as a parent, could not bring himself to reject the child. Varys noted that Elvin was still tormented by guilt for not being able to protect his son, even though he had also lost his brother in battle. He harbored no resentment towards the little one, deciding to raise the child on Riena's advice. He named him Tumit originally with no intention of taming Reel, but the act of naming the child seemed to bestow divine blessings upon him after connecting those events. He realized that the threat causing all these troubles was Leviathan. 1 week later, he, Elvin, and Varys went to test the combat design made by Mappa. He would attack Golem with a firestorm, but the Golem used either Chelem shield combined with a magical shield successfully withstood the fiery onslaught. Elvin shared that the forces known as witches led by Alamina had once been completely destroyed by the monster hidden in the deep sea. Suddenly, the Reel screen caught everyone's attention. The young girl somehow climbed a tall mast and got stuck there. Elvin immediately rushed and climbed up to save Reel as his large body fell backward. Fortunately, he and Reel are fine. Rena ran to catch the Reel earlier than Rhienna while she was washing the rolls in the garden, but the naughty girl sneaked away to the weapon-making area. Suddenly, she remembered she had a seed but didn't know its name, so she asked Varys about it. Rena saw her and spontaneously named it E.G. Drail. Varys mentioned that he had heard that name before. A farmer from a village specializing in agriculture said, I.G. Drail is an ancient tree that gives life to all creatures, although mostly considered a folk tale without much authenticity. The next day, the group moved to a newly opened mineral resource area to develop new land, transported with the help of spiders and slime. By evening, everything was set up, and they started planting seeds. I.G. Drail also planted some flower seeds from her homeland. The heel seeds planted grew in seconds without any external intervention. After adding some sunstone, the young tree quickly grew into a large tree, but its growth was far from normal. It continued to grow rapidly, transforming into a large, ancient tree with lush branches. The heel urged everyone to flee the area. Unfortunately, Mappa stumbled and got caught by the roots. Pulled into Rena's heel, and Shell managed to escape just in time. Within minutes, the small sapling had become a giant mappa tree, firmly rooted in the trunk with great strength to attract attention to be healed. And Rihanna had to climb from one root system to another to reach Mappa. When they finally arrived, they found Mappa fast asleep. The scent of the Drail egg tree was truly delightful, providing an incredibly refreshing feeling to everyone. Rihanna could feel the tremendous power emanating from the tree, and the heel could also feel its constant magical flow, seemingly holy magic manifesting around them unnoticed until Riel enthusiastically climbed the tree branches to explore this new environment. Rihanna found herself enveloped in the tranquility provided by the tree as if she were back in her homeland forest. Then, Heel, Rihanna, and Riel all set off to explore further, climbing to the top of the tree where they could look down on the island and admire the vast ocean. The Heel murmured that it would be very bad. When a ship from Svils passed by, Rihanna suddenly asked why H was alone on the island. Seeing his expression change, she regretted asking such an insensitive question. Her gaze dropped, and she revealed that she had been expelled from the kingdom for incompetence. When in the capital, she often retreated to a secluded residential area to read books. The palace was full of mocking stares, making it difficult for her to feel comfortable. One day, she stumbled upon a little demon while reading a book. The creature was initially hostile, purely out of self-defense, filled with bruises and scratches. It was chained to a pole, unable to bear seeing the creature in such distress. Rihanna used her healing magic on it. In the following days, she often visited and played with the little demon, whom she named Lopez. Despite her efforts, she couldn't unlock the chain around its neck. She patted the little creature's head, promising that one day she would release its chain so it could be free. During those moments, Heel felt much more satisfied. Heel was playing with Lopez in Reading when he suddenly heard footsteps leaving Lopez and hiding nearby. Orin arrived with some elite students from the Magic Academy. One by one, they attacked Lopez using their dark magic, attacking very cruelly so that the target was left in a worse condition than death. Heel could hear and imagine all the inhumane things that group did to Lopez. After they left, he would rush out to hug Lopez, taking care of him every day, but his weak healing magic was not enough. The group led by Orin kept coming back the next day and continued to torture Lopez. The next day, when Orin and his group arrived, instead of hiding as usual, he stood up and begged them to save Lopez. Orin looked at Heel with disgust. He put on gloves and gave a hard slap to Heel. Defending Lopez made Orin feel very humiliated and disgusted when he was about to release the fire spell on Heel. Lopez gathered all his courage, knelt down, and begged Orin once again to stop saying he was sick of this kind of training and let his Heel do what he wanted when the Heel began to feel relieved. Orin said he would forgive Lopez if the Heel could break free in 10 seconds, which was impossible because Orin began counting down the Heel, desperately trying to conjure weak magic to save every second. But he couldn't overcome the evil Lopez burned to death right in front of him. Warren and his friends laughed mockingly, throwing cruel words and walking away. The Heel went crazy with anger. He clenched his fists and attacked Orin, the enchanted shoes Orin, truly protecting him from the healing blows. The healing hands could not penetrate the shield and began to bleed. He did not want to explain in detail what happened after that. He only mentioned that he woke up in the hospital and would cremate Lopez's body. Putting the ashes into a small jar and taking them with him, he blamed himself for being a despicable person. Rihanna immediately objected, deeply touched by what Tumit had experienced, awkwardly convincing Renna that she did not expect her story to affect her like this. Riel's call brought back the summer mood, returning Tumit and Renna to normalcy. They stood up and walked towards the place that had been calling them before they opened the door to the stunning lavender hues and the slightly uplifting natural scenery. Rihanna approached Tumit, speaking heartfelt words. She knew that Tumit would struggle to forget the regret, but not everything was against her from now on. She no longer had to live with torment and loneliness in the following days. Tumit began to study what could be made from the tree. He asked Varus to process its leaves into various potions for pain relief, medicines, and tree sap tea. The tree sap was also harvested to produce health elixirs. Dry branches were used for crafts or chaloom equipment. It seemed that the branches of the IG Drassel tree had the power to reduce fatigue. The giant divine tree seemed to bless the growth of all living creatures. The flower field made Tumit believe in a bountiful harvest season. One night, as he was sound asleep, he suddenly screamed in distress, worried about the actual heel, and others came to comfort him. A symbol suddenly appeared in the left eye of the rail. When everyone saw the symbol, they saw a terrifying shadow in their minds, a heavily damaged ship adrift in the ocean above the ERS ship. The beastmen lay dead in large numbers. Alamina was struggling to make a shield to fend off the Leviathan attacking the ship. The vision suddenly ended, making everyone truly frightened by it. What they had just witnessed a sign in the real eye known as the Divine Eye. Although Varys was not sure of its full ability, it had the power to replay the battle that had been witnessed in reality. The power of the Divine Eye has impacted the entire island, and everyone has witnessed it. Seeing the destructive power of Leviathan, people were afraid, thinking this is a warning sign that the monster is approaching the island. Hyle's sure this is not an ordinary monster. He also doubted his own abilities, and questioned whether he could protect everyone at a time when Heel could not trust himself. Elvin stepped in to boost his spirits, reminding him that they had all been through bad things together fighting with Orc. Elvin reassured them that if everyone stayed united, no one could stop them, fueled by Elvin's encouragement. H's spirit was immediately lifted, and he felt more determined than ever as a leader. He would urge everyone to come together and give everything to protect the island. After this, he would hold a strategic meeting with key members Elvin, Varys, Rhea, Mappa, and Feel. They acknowledged their uncertainty about their ability to face the sea monster Leviathan. Mappa also doubted whether the weapon he made from orichalcum could defeat the beast. Elvin suggested relocating the village residents to a deep cave, where he soon found a golem for shelter. He argued that since Leviathan was so large, it likely wouldn't be able to enter the cave. Additionally, if its attack was prolonged, they could build a refrigeration warehouse next to it to store their food supplies. However, this plan carried the risk that if Leviathan attacked, the shelter would collapse and trap them inside the cave. Hyle only saw one other option for mining new materials. The island is rich in rare resources that have helped them overcome many previous dangers, because Heel believes that something valuable may still be hidden deep underground that can help them face future situations. Yet he still does it. Not sure about the feasibility of this plan, the encouragement and belief of everyone then strengthened Heel's conviction. He prepares his equipment for the journey and decides to bring along Reel. Even though Reel has not mastered the power of the Divine Eye, it will surely be useful from that day on. The entire island is filled with readiness to fight, as the defense perimeter around the island is quickly built and almost unfinished, with the Reel Divine Eye helping Heel discover many types of minerals. A few weeks later, when Ryle's excavation found something, that Heel went to dig there and fell into another deep cave. In this cave, there is a large golem wearing ore mining armor. Next to the golem, there is a magnificent silver sword. Heel striking the sword with his axe, and the sound produced immediately reaches the ears of the Ma in a miracle. He was able to teleport to heal the location within minutes. Mappa saw the sword and then knelt in front of it with a joyful expression. After that, Mappa took the sword back to the workshop area and quickly followed him, because Mappa brought the sword back, which made him panic, and hurriedly realized that the workshop was not hot enough. The heel was re-registered, and his help to combine the heat of the furnace with magic created an abundant supply of heat after the sword was returned to its raw form. Hugh was surprised to learn that the sword was made of a very rare material called mithil. He was sure Mappa could forge a weapon capable of killing the god of construction. The fortress had been completed. Everything was carefully prepared to face the legendary sea monster. One night, he would hear Elvin apologize sincerely for previously speaking ill of Alamina as a warrior. Elvin firmly acknowledged that the queen was an extraordinary warrior. The time was near when they would seek revenge for Alamina. The decisive day finally arrived. That day, an orc ship. Suddenly appearing near the island, everyone thought they would attack the island, but strangely they fired cannons into the sea instead. The Eye of God. Ra gave a chilling premonition of horror to everyone. The Leviathan leaped from the water, destroying orc ships and emitting a terrifying roar that tore through the sky, turning the sea into chaos. The creature thrashed wildly, attacking other ships without regard for its surroundings. Helen's cannon shots rang out loudly, gathering everyone to take their positions as they did during drills. She decided not to save the orcs, but to kill the Leviathan as quickly as possible, following Hill's orders. Hill led the old woman and children to safety in the open fortress, where the crushing machines hidden in the heel and map gradually emerged. Its structure resembled a giant arrow, with the special feature of the arrowhead being made of mithril, designed to destroy anything it passed through. This arrow represented the collective efforts of the entire island's population. Elven Target adjusted the arrow's direction and commanded it to be fired. The arrow was launched, but contrary to everyone's hope, the arrow did not hit Leviathan. When it was only 5 centimeters away from Leviathan's body, the creature realized it and somersaulted in the air to avoid the arrows. Hill was stunned. He couldn't believe Leviathan with its colossal body could move so fast. Elvin, as the blooded military leader, remained calm and continued his next steps. He thought Leviathan had exerted its full power to avoid the previous shots so accurately. Hill decided to join Rena to hold the terrifying monster on the right wing, deploying 2 golems that created snow and ice. While on the left side, 2 golems created a tornado that combined to unleash a massive snowstorm towards Leviathan, but the magic seemed ineffective against the monster as it continued to attack towards the fortress even faster, quickly switching to fire magic that froze the entire sea. Leviathan was momentarily trapped before fiercely destroying the thick ice to continue its attack towards the island. The situation was dire, as Leviathan opened its large mouth to release a deadly dark spell and immediately directed the golems to a defensive position to create a magical shield. Leviathan launched its attack directly at Sheol Island, almost shaking the earth with its power. Elvin shouted as he shot an arrow that hit the Leviathan's neck without being seen due to the magical aura that made him invisible. Everyone cheered in excitement, but quickly regained their composure, focusing on the next step. A rope made of spider silk and steel wire was shot and embedded in the beast's winged heel, starting a countdown to send the 6 strongest golems into the sea to throw a steel cable around the Leviathan to prevent it from retaliating. The Leviathan's fierce blow almost caused the ballista gears to shatter as the arrow was about to be shot. But an unexpected event occurred from beneath the Leviathan's scales, the great sea creature. A specific parasite for giant sea creatures appeared and attached to the gem Elvin commanded on the arch, immediately shooting down these parasites as marine life became more crowded. They climbed the walls of the fortress to infiltrate the Leviathan, breaking the chains around it, causing the golems to lose momentum and crash into the fortress unknowingly. Sharp spikes had grown on the back of the Leviathan, emitting intense heat. The lighthouse screamed for everyone to get down as it released the W-shield protector to hold it back from the heat. The lighthouse stopped right when it seemed like everything was over. It pulled back the shield, and the Leviathan attacked by slamming its tail into the fortress. The power from the Leviathan's tail shook the entire island where it's underground. Residents were very anxious and scared. Children held on to their loved ones while crying and asking if they would lose their homes again. One of the children's mothers hugged them tightly, reassuring that Leader Heel and the others would soon recover. Peace at that moment was a pile of rubble as the Leviathan attacked golems number 6 and 7 that had been protecting its tail. Fortunately, the shell was there just in time to catch the heel when he was thrown into a panic, looking around, calling out to others but receiving no response under the sea. Louse debris slowly emerged, crawling towards the heel, refusing to let the louse advance further. He would use thunder magic to fight them, but his magic seemed weakened and ineffective against the louse, as the Heil's louse-infested charge could only produce a protective shield to cover both himself and the shell at this critical moment. R appeared in his hands, holding a sharp scythe that perfectly sliced through the marine life. Riena's voice was firm as he declared that he would not let any filthy creature touch his heel from behind. Dozens of arrows flew accurately, targeting each stunned shoe heel as the goblins rushed out like ants from a disturbed nest. Their faces were filled with battle spirit, fiercely declaring their determination to protect the heel by any means when Leviathan attacked the fortress. The golems in defensive positions, using their bodies to protect everyone so that no lives were lost under the command of the elven goblins, the golem, and Tran the spider, quickly vanquishing the remaining enemy horde. Now, Leviathan's heel decided to use a high-risk plan to confront the sea monster Rena. Taking Hyle's hand and transferring the remaining magical power to her, as Leviathan prepared to launch a second attack with his fiery breath, Heel quickly rising to the back of the Terran and heading to the location where he planned to execute his strategy. Leviathan turned and chased Elvin's heel, unwilling to watch. He would risk his life without doing anything, pulling the ballista machine from under the rubble to prepare for another shot. Even though the machine's crank was damaged, Elvin still struggled to operate it, and Mappa ran to help him. On the other side, Leviathan circled around. His body surrounded the orc ship's heel when he saw Leviathan immediately firing his cannon. A sharp arrow shot right into Leviathan's eye. "Release yourself from the siege," and Terran ran to the exact area behind Leviathan and signaled to fall to receive the full signal, and Tariena's descent underground began enthusiastically dismantling the supporting pillars. A few minutes later, the layer of rock cracked, causing Leviathan to fall directly into the deep hole. This was the emergency plan if the ballista was not enough to bring down the beast. He activated the mill whirlwind symbol of the Cave King and maximized the mining output to destroy Leviathan. He poured all the power of the Cave King into the metal that killed the gods and attacked the monster's head directly. The attack from the heel almost split Leviathan's separated heel and grabbed a piece of Terran silk and began to climb. Suddenly, Leviathan roared loudly. The cave began to show signs of collapse while the heel was still not fully pulled. Rena dived into the hole, grabbed a piece of silk released by Terran, swam to heal and catch it. The sonic wave from Leviathan's roar had weakened the healing power. Despite the request for healing, she fled. Rena clung to him, lifting her heel while holding a strand of silk with one hand, trying to climb quickly. A large white figure rushed forward to catch her heel, and Rena pulled them out of the hole just as they were about to reach the surface of a large rock suddenly fell. Fortunately, something appeared and threw the rock aside, protecting them from danger. After escaping death, she would realize that their savior was two cobalt beasts. Apparently, Cobalt's Ash and Hein had detected their scent. Elvin and Varys arrived quite surprised to see the two beasts. According to Varys, Ash and Hein were twin warriors from the Tyres tribe mentioned by Alamina. When they saw that Ash and Hein were still alive, they immediately knelt to apologize for failing to fulfill their oath as followers. After the Tyres ship was struck by Leviathan, the brothers lost track of reality, drifting at sea for days and rescued by Captain Camus, an orc pirate from the Corvus tribe. At that moment, a large pirate ship approached the island. Elvin did not order an attack, but looked to Ash for an explanation. Ash suggested that Elvin meet Cameo, who stated that if Elvin sought revenge, now was his chance since the orc pirate ship was severely damaged. Hein added that she, her brother, and the orc tribe were now entrusting their lives to Elvin's hands. Camus disembarked from the ship and walked straight up to heal his figure, 5 times the size of a human. Camus praised the battle that had just taken place and expressed his confusion upon seeing a human leading the entire Goblin Island. Elvin asserted that even though they had saved the Corvus tribe, it did not mean that Beld and the tribe would forget their past grievances. He then asked Camus if he had any proposals for both tribes to make peace, while Camus immediately threw his sword to the ground, took off his hat, and knelt in front of everyone to take responsibility on behalf of the Corvus tribe. He asked Beld and the goblins to save the lives of the orcs in return. His own life. Camus' followers standing behind him rushed forward to plead with the human to forgive their tribe leader. They stated that all the misfortunes were caused by traitors in their ranks. Camus instructed his followers to remain silent because he did not dare to face the embarrassing truth that implicated them both. After a heated argument, Elvin shouted for silence, took a step forward to intervene, wanting to uncover the truth that his subordinate had mentioned earlier. When Camus was away, his deputy Claude had stolen several warships from their main headquarters. Claude often harbored evil thoughts aimed at weakening Camus, but he was supported by many individuals with deviant ideas. When Camus realized this, he attempted to pursue Claude, but he was ambushed and disappeared without a trace. The people who attacked Belden and Tyus were led by Claude on the warship rampage. They were attacked by the Leviathan, a stranded undead on an island a few weeks prior. The warriors of Claude's Tyres tribe suffered a similar fate when they were attacked by the Leviathan. Although the truth was now clear, Camus still insisted on taking full responsibility. Elvin approached Camus, drawing his sword and pointing it directly at him. Camus did not resist, prepared to die at the hands of the mighty warrior Belden. As Elvin raised his sword, everyone thought he would end Camus' life to avenge their homeland. However, contrary to expectations, Helen challenged Camus to a one-on-one duel. Heel was shocked by Elvin's decision. Al only knew Elvin as the undefeated general of Belden, his opponent now being the head of the Tain Orcs. Heel wanted to use the magical shield to protect his team. Rihanna understood his intentions to Heel, signaling him not to interfere. C, whom you chose, raised his sword and stood up. He was ready to die, but he accepted Elvin's challenge as the head of the tribe. He vowed not to let his opponent take his life easily. Elvin tightened his grip on his axe, words showing that mercy was never meant for enemies who invaded his homeland. Everyone held their breath watching the duel between the goblin warrior and the head of the orc tribe. If Elvin could use an axe, Camus could surely use a sword. Their attacks were both cunning, with lightning-fast movements and precise strikes. The battle was intense, and the amazing Camus seemed to have found a gap in Elvin's defense, focusing his attacks and causing one of Elvin's axes to slip from his hand. Cam's attack was so fast that Heel thought he might have missed some important details. Camus advanced again, each of his movements swift, sharp, agile, and unpredictable, leaving everyone breathless and holding their chests in suspense. Elvin continued to fight, despite having only one weapon left. Camus guessed Elvin's intention to avoid the axe attack once again. He was sure that Elvin was now truly overwhelmed. However, Elvin may have made a mistake by underestimating the renowned abilities of General Goblin. Elvin used his bare hands to block Cam's sword. The blade pierced Elvin's hand, but his expression remained unchanged. The fight shifted from using weapons to a bare-handed battle. Camus gritted his teeth, swearing to destroy Elvin. Elvin's muscles bulged and the mark on his arm shone at the peak of his strength. Elvin lifted Camus and slammed him to the ground. The first follower of Kunk rushed to his aid, struggling to help him. The words spoken by Camus to Elvin to end it all. Elvin turned to face the goblins who raised their axes high to declare victory for the Belden tribe. After that, Elvin apologized to Helvin for acting recklessly and leading to the duel. Helvin truly understood. Elvin admitted that he would do the same in his place because Camus Heel allowed him and his tribe to stay on the island until their ship was repaired. During this time, Camus could work to unite his tribe while Fule remained silent, maintaining a hunched posture as Elvin approached. Fule kicked his shin hard, although not as strong as before. To Elvin, it was still a powerful kick that aimed at his father's chest. Fule reminded him not to push himself. Camus boldly declared that all of his warriors would be under Hill's command from that day on. Over 100 Corvus became guests on the island. Ash and Hein continued their duties to protect the natives and expressed their desire to serve Heel. They asked Heil to give them a new name. The healing purpose of taming was to allow the goblins to benefit from the mark without forcing them into slavery. So Ash and Hein's brothers are now Ashton and Hughes. He would assign them to continue protecting the true ones while speaking with Varys. Suddenly Varys felt dizzy and collapsed, although he was fine in the end. His forehead felt hot. Rena was very concerned about Hill's condition and asked Varys to handle the current situation. While he took Kill back to their cave to rest, even though he had exerted himself in battle alongside the hellish Wren carrying her easily while everyone cleaned up the battlefield, Mappa tried a piece of Leviathan belly meat and became so excited that he jumped around the hole where Leviathan fell. Transformed into a cold storage with Lev Pan's meat stored there, the relationship between the Belden and Corvus tribes improved when Corvus offered to help Belden move the giant golem in the middle of the sea to land. This cooperation is exactly what Hela hoped for to improve the relationship between the two tribes that were once enemies. He will have many plans he wants to carry out, but he knows he needs to restore his strength first. Rihanna remained by his side to support him. and Varys concocted medicines from drail leaves day and night to help him. Will recover after a long time in bed. He is eager to return to mining. A few days later, the goblin mining team found a new cave with a hot spring source, even though they had faced countless challenges ranging from arriving alone on a remote island to saving a sunken ship to recently fighting the legendary sea monster. Leviathan felt that the current situation was the most dangerous he had ever faced in the hot springs. Rena was sitting comfortably in the corner, while Camus and Cobalt, led by Rena, were touring the island and happened to pass by a healing rest area. Rhianna brought the clothes she wore when she first arrived at Parasai, which were previously torn in many places, and had repaired them with spider silk, making them look new. Ashen expressed his amazement that the island, although it appeared to be just a small rock formation from the outside, had an extensive underground system with sophisticated forging equipment. He wants to improve the island so that it is open to addressing all of Cammy's concerns. Cammy stated that the Corvus tribe would not be a burden and would try to make peace with the Beldam community. Rhianna thought that the villagers might have surpassed her to apologize, but Camus refused the apology because she understood that such things take time to adjust. Camus is still puzzled by how humans can rule an island filled with monsters. Heel had just started to explain that the island is part of Sfils when Full arrived with hot news. A spring emerged from the ground when Tumit arrived at the location, and everyone had already gathered there. Varys asked about his health, and Elvin could hardly contain his excitement about the hot spring. Penu mentioned that water had emerged during their previous excavation, but never in the quantity that Tumit was about to check if the water was safe. Mappa jumped in to relax, and Tumit asked Mappa if there was a way to channel this water out, which seemed challenging. Mappa pondered for a moment and then rushed to the workshop. He made a sketch design for what he was going to make, including some materials from stone and iron. On that day, the goblins began throwing long pipes, while Mappa designed a mechanism for the golem's arm that could produce sparks of fire. A large project was initiated to bring water to the surface, with several complex devices being installed at the water source to avoid water wastage. He decided to build a public bath on the surface. Veli was very eager to work with everyone. Rena always kept an eye on things, so Heel had to restrain himself. A week later, the outdoor bath was completed. Mappa started the water distribution device and successfully transported hot water from the cave to the surface. Camus kindly suggested that Belden bathe first, but Elvin impulsively kicked him into the hot spring. After that, everyone spent time relaxing in the hot spring. Elvin and Camus continued to tease each other, even comparing muscles to see who was more impressive. When Heel enthusiastically tried to jump into the pool, he was brought back to reality to realize that both men and women were bathing together without any designated separate areas. It seemed that the concept of separate bathing did not exist for the monster Feli. He hesitated and turned away when Reyna invited him to join everyone in the bath. Kyle and Kang Kang descended into the cave where the hot spring originated. Luckily, they found it still filled with water for a relaxing soak. Without expecting it, Tumit guessed that they would be there and joined them. He explained that he didn't want to be alone. He could not resist sitting shyly in the corner, reminding himself to stay calm and share that he still had not completely eliminated his feelings for his homeland. Memories of violence and death sometimes haunted him, but he expressed happiness seeing the Corvus tribe and Belden slowly coming together. He understood his feelings and reassured himself that everything would be fine because of his hard work and lack of rest. Rhianna fell asleep leaning on the heel in the calming hot spring waters. Spring was beneficial, as the heel felt healthier than before. One day, Camus approached the heel to talk to the LED heel to the highest point on the island, where they could oversee the entire seascape. Camus presented the heel with a harbor design as a gesture of good intentions to celebrate his recovery. Camus had asked to prepare this after inspecting it. Camus suggested using reclaimed land as the foundation for the harbor. The chief of the Corvus tribe heard that Heel wanted to be involved in external trade, but did not have the means. Because the Belden ship was proposed for more urgent needs, he offered Heel the use of the Corvus ship, and after it was repaired, it would need a port for docking in Camus' design, included a triangle symbol with annotations that did not need precision, honestly admitting that he did not expect Heel's perfection to agree with this approach. Camus then remembered that the heel came from Sand's failure and listened as Heel shared why he came to the island after the previous disclosure to Rena. Heel felt more comfortable discussing this issue in the present. The island is inhabited, allowing them to live freely without interference. His plan was then shown to Mappa and Varys for further input. On the day of the laying of the first stone, he used his king's skills to establish a strong and amazing foundation. Camus, who witnessed it for the first time, helped Camus with the remaining work directed by the golems, who needed more stones for the construction of the port, returning to mining, diving, returning to work that bound him so tightly to the island's heel, using his old boat but also a mythical mobile to transport reserve rails, following Ashton and House to the workplace. Ashton is relied upon to keep a close eye on the set, while he fully assists with Minor F, who speaks comfortably with everyone. Sometimes misunderstood due to his straightforward nature, but his attitude makes Ashton and he feel accepted with his strong physique, quick mind, and even competes with fools. He will be pleased as the number of miners increases. He never imagined that mining could be so enjoyable. The rail seems to have found something and continues to call attention beneath the layers of soil and rock. They discover what appears to be a vertical box made of orc chulam. Ashton finds a Q-shaped stone identified as a teleportation stone used to move between similar stones. Paying close attention to the slot on the box that fits perfectly with the teleportation stone, when he places the stone in the slot, the door immediately opens. While everyone hypothesizes about the operation of the mysterious box, Mappa enters and disappears, stunned. He will follow them when the real divine eye connects with the visions of others, showing them where Mappa went and volunteering to examine it thoroughly. Ashton and Hughes insisted on accompanying her for protection. The box became cramped as they all entered a few seconds later, and somehow they were all transported to a place resembling an ancient lyre. Sensing the place to be a room with evolution stones, and His Majesty detecting the scent of Mappa, he immediately led the way towards it. They found Mappa Tak Bergerac in a pool of blood, causing their hearts to race with fear and attack. However, upon flipping Mappa over, they realized that she had disappeared due to shock after seeing the image of a half-new woman with high heel using a spell to revive Mappa. They urged her to leave the last Mappa behind, accidentally seeing Mark, whom she recognized depicted in a book on the ground. She picked it up to take a closer look, but quickly put it back as she was urged on when the group reached the teleportation box to leave. They encountered Varys, Camus, and Rena, brought there by Varys's shell, who was very excited about the discovery, but noted that they had not been able to decipher the script in the book found in this place. Camus joyfully exclaimed that it seemed they had found a hidden civilization beneath the shoal, suggesting that everyone explore the surrounding environment, and no one objected. F discovered a detailed panorama image of an island so vivid that he felt he had seen the architecture somewhere before, while Rihanna and Full discussed the image, looking at the shell stuck on something, while looking at a beautifully crafted statue of a goddess holding a staff. H speculated that the inhabitants of this place must have created this statue in ancient times, and he remembered that no artifact like it had ever been reported in his kingdom. He wondered if there were any remnants left. As the group waited to be discovered, they also found some hearing stones and magical stones among the remnants of the golem. Varys was interested in further research, choosing some books to take back for study. Although their efforts could not find an entrance, Fulla saw a crack and wanted to break through the protected wall. Full used defensive magic to ensure his safety when the wall was breached, entering and finding 3 full evolution stones. She is a hard-working girl who is unmatched in her enthusiasm for mining every day. She was the first to arrive and the last to leave the mine, often worried that Fulle was too obsessed with his work. She also realized something that Fulle had long desired, the evolution stones. After completing their expedition for a while, the group returned to the surface and gathered under the egg-shaped drazzle tree to share food during their conversation. The Cobalt brothers and Camus discovered that Rena is the daughter of Belden. Rena appears human because she uses the evolution stone. Camus always considered Rena as a runaway princess with heel that make her blush. Returning to the main issue, He'll decide to give the full stone because he has been searching for it for so long. The second stone, intended to be kept by Varys, explains that it would be embarrassing if the sorcerer varied. King Mark became unusable while he remained an elven goblin. Elven suggests that because Varys is getting older, it would be better if he had a new body to live longer. Both Rena and Full become anxious initially. Varys thought someone else might be more suitable. But after hearing everyone's advice, he accepts the stone from the Heil because no one else wants to develop it. The last stone remains unclaimed. Then Varys remembers that Camus has a mark on his hand, the Sea Dragon mark, a powerful symbol capable of controlling water, but only monsters can use this. Mark Camus did not express interest in using it, even though its benefits are clear to a sailor, especially since he does not want to evolve if it means his scales will make him less handsome. After discussing, everyone agreed that Fulla and Varys should use the stone immediately. Full was a bit tense, so Rena gave some encouraging words to facilitate the evolution process. Fulla took the stone and visualized his desire to become a great warrior princess of Elven. A few seconds later, he transformed into a tall, beautiful girl. Delighted with his new form, Full was very happy in the eyes of the parents like Elven, but Full still looked quite slender. Full realized that the successful evolution meant that he could now use the magic heal and see the magical energy flowing around him. Now, Full was fully prepared to learn how to use full magic, wondering why, even though they both evolved from goblins, Rhianna looked human while still retaining her blue skin characteristics. Rhianna was surprised by her words, unsure of what to say when it was her turn to use the stone. She did not change her appearance, but she could stand tall because the chronic pain she had suffered for years disappeared. Another important thing is the very large amount. Magic leaked from the stunning Varys, who wanted to test his sorcery, Kark. He utilized a very powerful fire spell that almost burned everyone nearby. When Varys withdrew his fire, everyone was so shocked that they couldn't speak, seeing Varys transform into a very handsome elven wizard. In disbelief, Elven repeatedly asked if the people in front of him truly did not notice the change in his appearance, and emotionally expressed his gratitude for being able to use magic. Unbelieving that a day like that would come, only after Shell handed Varys a mirror did he see himself and faint from shock at that moment. Varys returned to his original form, remembering hearing that the wizard King Mart had the power to transform his bearers into the form most capable of effectively using magic in the following days. Vera spent more time fully studying his mark, and he continued their mining work. He decided to let Foe keep any magical stones they found, even though the stones were becoming rarer, thinking it best to side with him so he could enhance his magical powers. But all would be in vain if Full didn't know how to use them to prevent this heal from starting a magic class for Rena. Varys and Full found the learning process challenging, but he had sharp intuition. After a few sessions, Fulla could use ice magic. Elven thought Fulla still needed to work harder, saying to Elven that Full truly wanted to be like his father. Elven remembered how Fulla used to ask him to play Stonebox with him. He found it strange that his daughter enjoyed the game so much. Upon Varys mentioning it, he realized that Fulla was very upset. Losing to Rena was a source of shame as Rhianna's opponent, but losing to his friend was even worse. Sometime later, a dock was built at the seaport, and ship repairs were prioritized as he wanted to return to his homeland where his people and family were. Heel was informed by Camus that their ship could sail as soon as it was ready. Camus was overjoyed and instructed his crew to ensure they would handle the trade. The long-awaited trading operation by Heel would soon commence on the day the ship was getting ready to set sail. A dreadful incident occurred while Cam's crew was loading cargo onto the ship. A giant sea serpent suddenly emerged from the water and attacked everyone just as it was about to strike a sailor. Camus bravely jumped in and kicked its mouth. The sailors thought the snake was a leviathan. Terrified, the snake turned around and continued its attack towards Cameo. Mappa appeared like a god throwing a sword or hulum at Camus, catching the sword. Camus jumped and split the snake in two. He hurried closer and witnessed the monster's body being severed, still writhing. Suddenly, 6 snakeheads emerged from the water. Cammy then clarified that this creature was indeed a devil eel. Only some of its arms were initially cut off by Camus so it could regenerate to destroy it completely. They needed to target its body, a flying fireball right at one of the monster's heads from behind, forming another fireball. The monster's head regenerated, and the foolish, frightened man hurried away, shooting the fireball just in time to save the foolish man from danger. The creature's arms protected its body, making it difficult to attack. Magic cannot be used here because it would destroy the harbor as a cameo. He fought the monster with full force. Varys quietly appeared from behind, activating his magic. Can Mark transform into a wizard? Varys turned the seawater into a rope that tightly bound the demon's arms with varying support. The lightning spell cast by Foe struck the creature, causing it to explode instantly. Foe's heel praised for his diligent training that contributed to defeating the elven sea monster standing on the observation deck. The observer grinned proudly as he fell, noticing below that Camus and his crew were not in good condition. They apologized to Camus for their inability to fend off the demon eels in his heart. Camus did not expect that the fear of Leviathan had greatly frightened his crew that day. Camus decided not to sail, sitting on the dock, criticizing himself for not understanding the ship's crew's spirit given the current situation. Sailing seemed difficult. The sailors mentioned that there was not only one Leviathan, but at least one more hiding somewhere in the ocean, according to Elvin. The more experienced the sailors, the harder it was for them to overcome their fears once they were afraid of something. Varys suggested that Camus allow the Corvus sailors to stay on the island temporarily, and then he could recruit people from Belden to sail together. Camus refused because the Cordis people belonged to the sea, and not being able to sail meant losing their dignity. R came up with the idea of building a ship that Leviathan could not attack. Camus considered it impractical because a ship that was too heavy would cause difficulties. Even if they made a ship out of orichalcum, there would not be enough material. Mappa suddenly had an idea. She used a piece of wood to sketch her concept. The next day, the crew went to the ice hole where the remains of the ship had previously fallen. Leviathan looked back at the sea monster's heel, still unable to believe that she and everyone else had managed to defeat it. After examining Leviathan's scales, Mappa used a mythal axe to start the process of harvesting the lighter scales than she had expected. That's why it could move so quickly to create the thick shell. Mappa melted mythal arrows to craft tools. Besides, Mappa and Cammy worked together to redesign the ship's structure. Their goal was to strengthen the ship as much as possible while maintaining its maneuverability. The frame was made of orichalcum, the inner boards and masts were taken from egg-drail trees, and the outer skin was reinforced with Leviathan scales. This ship could be considered the pinnacle of both technique and material. That night, Camus visited the graves of the deceased Corvus orcs stranded on the island. Camus recounted that 100 years ago, an orc had united those who had no place to return to after losing in battle against humans, and took over the sea, naming it Camus. He is a remarkable individual who has built a great warship in just one generation named Camus, which has been passed down from generation to generation of Corvus tribe leaders. Now in his generation, Camus blames himself for not uniting the tribe internally and for failing to support his sailors. After careful consideration, C was resolved to be strong enough not to tarnish the pride named Cameo. A few days later, the ship was officially launched into the sea with the help of a full golem, and Ashton was amazed by the power emanating from the ship, protected by the Leviathan scales. Ren felt that the Corvus tribe seemed somewhat anxious on deck. Camus announced to the crew that today they would train and test the ship. The sailors quickly took their positions. Camus observed from above, noticing that some were still quite nervous and afraid. Camus signaled to stop, calling out loudly to Golem number 16. The water began to churn. The lookout issued a warning to the crew underwater. I thought Leviathan had returned. Cammy urged them to calm down and stabilize their breathing as the ship was not shaken. Everyone looked in the direction pointed by KY and saw that the feared Leviathan was actually a golem that looked exactly like the legendary sea monster. Varys and Reno were curious and asked why the golem attacked the ship. Corvus only asked that no one disturb the ship. CMU announced that a simulated battle simulating a fight with Leviathan would soon begin, the crew frightened, assuming they would never be able to face something like that. Camus fully understood their fear, but refused to give up to face the sea once again, bidding farewell to his current body. Camus took the evolution stone and jumped into the sea. At this moment, everyone would witness the debut of the new Camus. The mark on Cam's hand shone as he truly transformed his now scaled body. Camus rushed towards the golem at a speed as if flying over the water, controlling the flow of water like a sea dragon so that Cam's new body was very suitable for underwater movement. The approaching enemy golem detected and, with a swing of its tail, threw Camus away. Rena is surprised because even the evolved Camus cannot withstand the imitation of Leviathan. The sailors on the ship can no longer remain silent. They immediately steer the ship towards Golem, the helmsman shouts, ordering the crew to fire carefully. They will not let their chieftain fight alone. Camus Dove swims underwater surrounding Golem at dizzying speed, creating a splash of water that engulfs it. Camus apologizes to Golem beforehand as he will pass through it with his swirling water sword attack, successfully defeating the Golem. Everyone, especially the crew, is very pleased with Chieftain Cam's performance in the battle. The imitation battle ends, and everyone cannot help but praise Camus. Camus humbly says that the victory is all thanks to his crew. He acknowledges and apologizes for doubting his own strength and this team. Finally, Camus asks the sailors if they still want to brave the sea with him, even though they were trembling and afraid before. The sailors are now regaining their spirits and are excited to make sails, even though they have to leave their old form behind. Cammy really likes her new body, and even considers it a new peak of beauty. After that, Camus spent a week perfecting the ship, while Gila decided on the goods to be traded before Camus set sail. A farewell party was held on the island that night. Heil invited Rena and Shell to explore the ship before his departure. Heil admitted that he was always fascinated by the outside world and where the ship could go. Of course, Heil never imagined that one day he would set sail. Sailing alone was just like an unrealistic dream he had made when he had no protection in the palace. Now, Heil can confirm that this island of Shal is his true home. Suddenly, BK headed towards the observation deck, camera weakening, saying he spent almost all his time on the ship before departing. The tribal chief also mentioned that Heil was always welcomed on the ship as the only human he acknowledged. In addition, Cameo had something she needed to discuss with Heil. Cam's expression turned serious when he spoke about matters related to the information he provided, revealing that the royal family of Sanels had hired the faction of Kla, the deputy commander, who had bet on the tray. Cameo could hardly believe it, because the people of Sanels were known to hate monsters. Cameo explained that they had found the wreckage of Claude's ship after being attacked by Leviathan, and the dying survivor had confessed everything to Cameo. Their mission was to suppress all powerful monster tribes near the kingdom. Esfils had promised them a very large reward and supported them secretly. Initially, they planned to hire Camus, but it seemed that Claude objected to this. He still did not believe that his father had given such an order. Camus stated that SFS had recently become famous on the continent by employing the Corvus tribe, which Camus suspected was Sanf's way of expanding its influence. Camus had been suspicious of this for some time, thinking that the exile rites might not be true exile. He will possess the Cave King badge that grants the power to mine freely, but he is sent to an island rich in underground resources, all connected in an unusual way. Systematically, he could obtain what Cammy implied, that the king knows about the power of the Cave King and what lies beneath the island. But if that is true, the king will not stay silent about the badge. Especially if he wants to develop the island, he will do so. Having sent more people, Camus hinted that there might be something on the island that the king does not want to announce to the public. Rihanna quickly responded that it must be underground ruins. Cammy snapped his fingers in agreement because that was actually what he thought. Camus admitted that he was initially suspicious of the faint heel due to ignorance about everything, but after spending time here, he saw that the heel was different and placed his hand on the healing shoulder. Camus reminded him that he was a prince of Sfils and that he lay within his territory, implying that the heel's day must face his own country. Approaching all that Camus said accurately, the relationship between the heel and Sanfa still existed. 2 days later, Camus sailed from the island. They would return to their homeland to reunite with their family. Golem number 16 was designed after Leviathan also left with them to provide support. Then the Heil informed everyone about their conversation. Cameo bowed his head and apologized for the family behind the attacks on the Belden, and Tyr's tribes were his own elven royal family, and everyone assured him that his mistake was not lying about his relationship with Svills was a serious matter that required careful consideration, rather than triggering a war, because Hill felt like he was once again putting his loved ones in danger. Everyone unanimously affirmed that it was their home. This awakened their determination to fight together. Varys believed that Sanel would soon come to the island to negotiate, even if Shill brought prosperity to Sanf and showed the power of healing governance. Varys still did not believe that it would be enough to prevent Sanel from intervening. Varys meant that everyone needed to become stronger to do so. Negotiating with Svills, he would agree with this view, but still emphasized that the key might lie in the ancient civilization buried underground to understand more about Shial Heel, forming an excavation team similar to the previous mining team. The staff pursued secrets beneath Shial, and the group knew nothing about it, deciding that the only way forward was to dig. The first step would involve investigating the ruins already excavated by the team, searching for magic while observing Real's reactions. For a week, they found nothing, not even traces of corridors connecting the rooms. According to Ashton, they had moved to the ancient library through teleportation devices, and all the relics found were not related. There might never have been a corridor to start with. Each room had a teleportation device, but they were all missing, wondering what references he could use when digging. The dinner bell rang right when the teenager realized that the original had disappeared. They frantically searched, and the heel was found Real in a remote cave corner. Ryle earnestly dug something until blood from his front claws. The heel quickly pulled the scroll and folded, jumped in and hit the ground hard. Beneath the earth's surface, there was a large bird skeleton next to it. There was also a fossilized egg. Ashton speculated that the bird carcass had been buried so long underground that it had turned into a stone-like Ryle seemed to really like it. Taryn carefully secured the stone egg and wanted to keep it near Rhianna, creating a safety rope to carry the egg on her back so she could take it everywhere, never leaving the side of the stone egg, even when sleeping, feeling that the egg would truly hatch with real care. So meticulous a few days later when the team was digging, he heard the sound of flowing water and followed the origin of the sound, feeling an indescribable strange feeling. Guided by the majesty of hearing, he dug to where the sound of water came from behind the stone. He would dig there. There was a hole. He almost fell into the hole, if not for Taryn holding him in front. Now there is a very large water-producing column. It seemed very deep, so deep that even the sharp-eyed Cobalt brothers had difficulty seeing it. Downward, Ashton looked towards the column, wondering if the water was flowing from the surface of the column. He looked in that direction and asked Taryn to use a thread to retrieve the green AI-Ix stone to the column. This stone is a magical stone that can produce water. H is interested, because with this magical stone, they can create a water source anywhere. Ashton mentioned that this is the source of the underground world's water. They might find other relics if they follow the current. Suddenly, they heard digging sounds behind the stone. The wall near where they stood felt the approach of magical power. He warned everyone about what would appear. The stone wall exploded and a giant black creature emerged from the hole. H thought it was a lizard, but considering its size and the great pressure it exerted, he believed it was more accurate to call it a dragon. The dragon turned to heel and screamed in fear. The teenage Earth dwellers were stunned so they could speak. The stone suddenly cracked, and the creature lost its footing and fell into the abyss while screaming for help. Taryn shot a thread at the dragon's body, and they all took the thread to pull it. Ashton warned that they might all be pulled down with the dragon because its footing was too heavy, and ordered the team to hold on longer while he ran towards the dragon. He activated the king's badge cave with the right wing and threw the stone. Stones of square blocks emerged embedded in the wall one by one, silk threads, unable to withstand the weight, and snapped he would ask the dragon if it was okay and urged to climb the rock. The exhausted Peg mentioned that the team had not even had a chance to rest before they had to save this creature, reassuring himself that the creature would not bite their heads. The dragon slowly climbed, while thinking it would die a few moments earlier, and after reaching the top, he took off the helmet he was wearing on his head and asked what it was. He couldn't believe he was talking to a talking dragon and wondered if it was the dragon's owner. The underground relics view shifted to the forest in the heart of the island, where the dragon voraciously ate everything in front of it as it chewed. It was mentioned that it only ate canned food recently. She would ask the dragon's name again, and answer that it was Royan. Varys exclaimed in disbelief, marveling at the mythical creature laughing out loud because Royan was different from what she had imagined. When asked if the underground legacy belonged to Rayan, he refused ownership and said it originated from the continent of Elto, a place dominated by the color red with erupting volcanoes, lava rivers, and dragons constantly fighting for supremacy. Vian mentioned that he had traveled through the Sade towards the east for about a month to reach the Earth's Shal. The dragon was frightened because it had never met someone who looked like a healer and did not forget to thank them for saving its life. Tumit was still shocked by the large scale of the dragon tunnels, thinking that as long as both sides could communicate, it was enough. But to everyone else, it seemed like a royal conversation, when in fact the dragon communicated through thoughts, which could be called telepathy. Additionally, Wen did not actually read minds. For example, when Tumit spoke, he would convey his thoughts through sound, and the dragon would understand that actions would be internally translated by others' minds. One enthusiastically asked if telepathy was a form of magic or a mantra. Rayan replied that he knew nothing about magic or mantras. The Earth Dragons only read and transmit thoughts through the horns on their heads, as they have anticipated that Earth Dragons possess strange powers that they do not have. Wen asked at the heel whether the ancient tree was a drawl, and mentioned that he knew it, and indeed looked magnificent. Then Royan asked if there was a nearby continent called Heaven that he had ever heard of. A continent far to the east, where human monsters and various species live in a rich culture surrounded by nature. Although Shur is just a small island that Rayan finds similar to a description he has never heard before, neither Rena nor Heel knows of any continent that fits. The description given by Wyan was a little sad, not surprised that the rumor might be wrong. The Earth Dragon is not looking for a new home. It has another goal that has failed to be achieved, but Wyan is considering meeting the people on the island of Sheol, Lucky wanting everyone to gather and see the beautiful items from the wandering merchant who is none other than himself. When speaking, the guard pulled out a basket from behind his back. Dragon trading has been hindered by the war in Elto, so he wants to expand to new lands in the basket made from the stomach of the Yojin lizard. There are many rare items, jars, knives, horns, all made from the best dragon materials, and because they are made for dragons. The size of the item is quite large. Besides that, this royale also has several dragon fire eggs and WN. Eggs that resemble stones are considered food, according to Royan, using the bodies of other species of dragons as common ingredients. He is not interested in eating dragon eggs, so Royan suggests that the eggs be incubated when they hatch. Their parents are very eager to raise them, especially if they can fly because it will be more useful. He will agree and negotiate for the eggs. Royan asks for some samples from Elto, which is currently dead land, but used to be a green continent covered by nature years ago with some V-cell trees that existed at that time. Vian admits wanting to restore his homeland, thinking about the money that can be made when the time is ripe to monopolize the D-cell egg market, so that the Heel party obtains Dragon A and other items for Mappa to study. Wen also gives the Heel a gift bag made of the same material because the basket inside the bag contains various stones and earth. Royan has collected them on the journey to store the Heel, thinking that the land will be very useful for expanding the farm. Royan stays one more night before returning home. Hill promised to return, contemplating the existence of dragons in Elto for a long time. The mysterious world across the ocean, and how many unknown civilizations might exist. Perhaps an excavation team will return to the water column location according to Heel analysis. Following the water flow might lead to other relics. To descend from the cliff, everyone needs Terran's help this time. Reyna also participated in the excavation and prepared thoroughly with protective gear. Ashton volunteered to go first to ensure His Majesty's safety, carrying a reel and full support, while Reyna and Terran were assisted by the shell. The distance was close enough, so he would try hard to stay focused on the previous night, when Terran was caring for his axe. Rihanna appeared and asked if he was worried about his legacy, admitting that he had never really tried to understand his father the king, and almost didn't remember the last time they spoke. Except for formal matters, for the king, other people's opinions didn't matter. His orders were absolute and everything had to be according to his wishes. While saying if exploring relics was what his father wanted, it seemed that Rihanna was frustrated, gently nudging Gil's back, urging him to reveal the secret of the seal and find out what his father really wanted. He will draw attention and be determined to dig, even though he has left the king and shouted when Taran jumped into the abyss heel. Feeling that facing them was just a minor issue, they all fell freely until they saw a dim light, and the bottom of the column gradually became visible, Taran shooting a thread to stick to the column wall securely. Rena landed on her heel, and the shell where it resembled a severely damaged reservoir stood full behind the column, calling for healing. Reporting that there was an entrance channel deeper into the hill walking to its side at the entrance of the Ashton Channel, stood guards signaling everyone to be silent inside. He seriously observed. After a few moments he came back out and reported that although the channel was stable and would not collapse, the channel would become more complex inside, so they all had to be careful. Rihanna came up with a great idea to place glowing stones along their path. The team moved further in, and wondered whose and why someone would make such a large underground relic. Reyna speculated it might be human because there was a relief statue of a woman on the wall of the Ashton Library. Ashton suggested that although the group may not know about them, their descendants reside on another island. It is possible that those people may have built similar underground structures when they passed through the Fulé intersection. Observing something moving, he will look closer and discover that it is 3 surprised slimes. The slimes quickly rush away. He remembers that he had met Tan, Mappa, and Shal. Especially he is curious about the Mappa era and whether he knows anything about this legacy. He can continue to lead the team following the sound of water flowing through the long tunnel and entering another underground room. Suddenly, the shells start jumping in panic, indicating that something is wrong. The doors at both exits suddenly collapse and he cannot break them. Heel was about to use his mithril axe when Reyna, frightened, says she can feel magical energy in the black square stone wall. Creatures begin to emerge from the wall, gathering into magical beings. They start shooting magical beams at the excavation team. He quickly creates a shield, guessing that these are the guardians of the relic. When Hyel launches a lightning spell, the entity absorbs his magic and shoots it back. F created a barrier, which was absorbed by them. Ashton charged forward and split the entity in 2 with his sword, opting for hand-to-hand combat as magic was ineffective. Following Ashton's lead, he summoned the power of the whirlwind, slashing with his very sharp sword. Blows to destroy magical creatures while the magical creatures worked together to reflect the heat rays back, slightly injuring Ashton's shoulder. Ashton supported Ashen by shooting sharp arrows towards the enemy. Then the 2 siblings combined their powers to create the final, illusory slash that cleanly vanished the magical creature's heel, and the others continued to shave continuously. After examining the magical creature's Hyel more closely, they found that they were golem types with internal strength. The core used a spell to extract magical energy from them, successively extracting energy from crystal stones, floating stones, and black iron. Looking at the stones, he would soon realize that the magical power absorbed by the golem was also stored in these stones, and they used black iron to prevent excessive heat. Ashton suspected that if there were guardian golems here, there must be something significant inside. Slowly, a door opened, and a golem with the upper part of a human and the lower part of a horse stepped out as he emerged fully into the light. He would see seed on his chest and exclaim that it was a new type of robot. Ashton commented that it resembled a combination of a horse and a knight, warning to be cautious and everyone who watched. The golem spoke at length in a strange language that no one understood. Rena thought it was the language from the books in the library. She stepped forward to explain that their group came from the surface. The golem said something else, then suddenly transformed its arm into a sword blade that leaped towards the digging team. Rena rushed forward, swinging her sword to block the golem's arm, using all her strength to push it back and not let it pass. Ashton ran to help, and together the siblings retaliated against the golem's attack. The terrifying creature's strength amazed Ashton as he chanted a fire spell directly at the enemy. The golem raised its hand to absorb the magic spell without suffering any damage, as Ashton suspected it had a magic-absorbing stone. The golem spoke again, its other arm turning into a bow, activating the king's crest to create a mountain of rocks to block the barrage of arrows aimed at them. Suddenly, there was silence. The bow peaked only to see the golem charging towards them at incredible speed, thrusting its sword straight through the rock barrier, causing the entire digging team to be shocked and thrown back. Ashton quickly stood up, scolding himself for being naive and wanting to capture the creature alive. The next time Ashton executed the whirlwind technique around the golem, creating the illusion of a whirlwind that seemed to match the speed of the tempest reaching Ashton and pressing the sword to his neck, he rushed to save himself, but it seemed that the golem was still on top of the wind. The situation was terrifying, and Rena and Fula could do nothing because their magic was ineffective. Tumit took out his mythical axe from his bag, instructing Rena and Fula to separate and prepare for the next part of the plan, as indicated by Tumit. The water vein in Tumit's axe hit the ground, causing water from the low channel to flood the hill, shouting to Ashton, and he retreated to the wall while Rena signaled to join her in reciting the mantra to freeze the entire underground warehouse. The golem successfully jumped in time, but its ironclad feet could not maintain its grip on the ice. The man quickly shot a thread that entangled the golem's 4 legs and held it tightly. Ashton and he attacked the golem from both sides. Everyone was surprised when the golem knight jumped, spinning around Ashton and Hughes, and then descended from above, throwing his brothers against the wall. The golem's feet were no longer claws, but had turned into sharp drills attacking Tumit, ready to end his life. At that moment, a bullet flew in front of Tumit just as the drill came very close to him. The team immediately rushed to heal, confused as to why the golem stopped its attack. A strange voice emerged from within the golem. Suddenly, the chest of the golem opened, and a sleepy-looking little girl wriggled out of the golem. The girl exchanged a few words, and then turned to the excavation team, asking something with great surprise. She inquired if she could understand what they were saying. The girl replied that she had been listening to everyone and learning to mimic them, still trying to understand what was happening. Suddenly, another girl emerged from the GM and quickly learned a new language. The girl took a step but immediately slipped on the ice, worriedly asking if she was okay. The child called the golem to help her stand and took her to the hole. Initially, she used a strange language, raising her hand as if giving orders. The sound of flowing water echoed, and from the threshold of the stone door that had previously attacked the team, a flying entity screamed in fear. However, the girl ordered the stone entity named Argo not to attack. Argo followed the girl's command and began to repair the pipeline. Suddenly, the child turned to the infiltrator excavation team and asked what had happened to Argos here. I will try to explain that Argos attacked first, so his team had to defend themselves. Then she will introduce herself and her friends to the little girl, explaining that they are Earth residents from the Shial Island above. She apologized for disturbing the ruins, but explained that she was looking for the reason her father sent her here. The girl was startled only when she realized that beneath them lay the heart of the Earth, which was considered Ashton's legacy. He asked if the girl didn't know what this place was, and the child replied that she didn't have that information. The only task she remembered was to protect this land. Fool sneezed because of the cold air of the ice layer. He was asked to move to another place to talk, but didn't get an answer. The girl looked towards the shell and asked the heel why Kava was protecting her from Bolan's attack. She realized that he meant Shell, and explained that Shell was a teammate and had saved them many times. The girl fell silent for a few seconds and then told everyone to follow her. She asked for their names, as she had previously called the knight Golem Bolan, so they had to call her something in return. In the conversation, to give an example, each team member introduced themselves one by one. The girl thought she wanted to distinguish among them, saying they could call her Miss. The group followed Miss to another tunnel where the golem block appeared. Miss assured them not to worry because they wouldn't attack while she was there. F asked Miss what language she was using, and Noah replied that the language did not have a specific name. The little goblin girl asked Miss if she spoke to anyone other than gold bars and if she felt lonely. Miss, expressionless, said she was not afraid of loneliness because there were plenty of people here. Rihanna was quite surprised to find Miss gradually mastering Bellin language, the language used by everyone. Fulla suggested taking Miss to the library upstairs, but the child immediately dismissed the idea as much as possible not to go, even though Fulle mentioned that if they unraveled the mystery of her past, Miss might be able to leave. She still said she had no memory, but had to complete her mission, especially if Miss left Argo would become uncontrollable, which was a very serious problem at that time. Miss led everyone to the door of His Majesty, kissed something, then muttered in disbelief. Miss gestured for the door to open, and in front of everyone's eyes, there was a beautiful forest under the giant dome. Ashton thought he was hallucinating, the land covered with lush green grass carpets and even fish in the river. He will know that they are still underground, and above the ceiling hums a stone that he suspects is the sunstone in the garden. Another golem is tending to the plants that look somewhat menacing. Nonon Heel plans to do something to the fish. Kavos then reminds him that protecting them is also his right. Miss Tanya, who gave her this task, Miss answered vaguely unsure or unable to determine the right to think the little girl might remember something, but she didn't. The teenager walked through the forest shaped like a tunnel that led to the road to where Enma woke up. She told of initially waking up in darkness, unable to see anything. The first thing she saw was nonsense. Kneeling in front of her, the group moved to a place with a statue of a goddess whose heel and Rihanna recognized as the woman from the statue in the library. Miss was unclear about who the woman was. She only knew she was assigned to protect the statue only uttered one word, but No knew what she needed to protect her. Heel told the girl that she could fulfill her task even without memories, but she had to try to regain her memory to at least understand who the statue represented. Nona believes that the reason the heel does not have a strong foundation when the heel reaches Pat's head. Nona noticed the sign on her hand. She turned and walked to the nearby stone platform. Nona mentioned that she had never paid too much attention to it, and also did not understand its meaning. The heel was surprised to see the carving on the platform that exactly resembled the badge of the king's cave that he owned, carved on the statue underground in the ruins. Full speculated that perhaps the statue or the woman had once had the king's cave badge. Ashton argued that it was the sign or signature of the creator of the statue, and that person had the king's cave badge. Nona thought she would have her badge, but it turns out everyone has it except her. Only now she will realize that there are people who do not have a badge before coming to hide. She did not know that monsters also have badges. This is a common badge of the cave heel. The king's cave is special because it is very rare that the heel has ever underestimated his badge, but was surprised to find out that its meaning extends far into the earth. He remembered Cam's words about a mind full of treasures and resources opened by the Heil badge, pondering what kind of person Kate King was before and what she did in this place. Suddenly, Heel was asked why he wanted to dig so deep when he expressed his desire to explore further into the ruins. Heel had not answered when the lady asked if knowing the past of the land had any significance today. After a few seconds of silence, he would explain that he came to hide under his father, the king's orders, and these ruins might reveal what his father expected from him. Frankly, he wanted to understand the king's intentions and decide the next steps, even though he might only be acting for himself. Noah stood exchanging a few words with Bullen, then agreed to let Heel explore, but insisted on accompanying him to avoid disturbances. The lady only allowed 4 people at a time for exploration, which you should agree to as night approached. The lady suggested postponing the investigation to the next day before leaving Heelbot to return to the surface. It would be tiring, but Rena carefully prepared a bag full of food and cooking equipment so they could camp right in the park. Ashton volunteered to go up and told the others to relax. Their concerns that night while cooking were suddenly interrupted when Nona returned. She refused to sit and eat with them but accepted a food package from Rena, the introverted girl. She came to inform everyone to gather at the fountain in the morning and not wander around. Feeling somewhat surprised that a little girl could be alone in a place like this, she speculated that these ruins were originally made for human habitation, even though there were food sources in nature. I feel uneasy because Miss is left alone here to guard this place tightly. She will intensify. The investigation may reveal clues about Miss's memory. When Full was about to wash his hands, suddenly he saw glowing spots. Everyone looked towards where the surrounding forest was full of glowing dots. Shell's body also naturally glows. Looking fine, everyone thought it was slime resembling stars in the sky. Rena felt this source of light somewhat cold under the statue of the goddess Noma, sitting calmly surrounded by countless glowing slimes. The next day, everyone moved to the fountain area. Bolin approached, opening his chest compartment while Nana was still asleep. She woke up asking about the exploration team members, suddenly heard a familiar voice, turned around, and saw Ashton bringing Vist towards them. After hearing about the Varys expedition, didn't want to miss out, and went down with Ashton, enthusiastically seeing Miss Varys asking some questions. After the first discussion, the exploration team was formed, with Hughes Varys Rena and Heel Bolin assigned to stay back with Ashton and the others. Miss also reminded Bolin she was ordered to remove Full if he dared to hurt this place. His heel was asked to start from the garden shell, wrapping his feet, showing a desire to join, and Miss agreed. The team crossed the vast forest and then found a wall across the entrance. Miss LED's heel R is where a giant golem is hidden in the corridor walls, resembling a dungeon, and many doors that require the girl to open them after the Hyla can ensure this place was built for living. No one is there anymore, but Miss still follows orders while resting on the bench. Varys handed Miss a book he took from the library, hoping to find something useful about the past Shal, and ironically the book Varys brought was a romance novel. Miss led the guests to the workshop where her heel was attacked the day before being repaired. Varys was quite curious about the machine containing a liquid nearby. Miss explained it was a metal destruction that could change the shape of the casing bolts made from this material. She would be amazed at the civilization. Here the display of mineral samples on the shelf looked very cool among the display of some objects blurring the door. He was quite curious about what was inside. Miss tried to read the mantra but couldn't open it, saying there are many areas outside her authority. His heel was still very curious, even considering breaking the door, but Mrs. Sharp gaze stopped him. But the badge on her hand reacted to the door. As she approached, everyone surprised, the door opened by itself in the darkness. A figure in a black robe stood observing the specimen in the container. Hearing the noisy sound, the figure quickly escaped from the automatic door opening, surprising everyone behind the door. There was a staircase sloping far down with no end in sight. Miss was also surprised by the automatic door opening, but she didn't say anything and immediately headed down. Everyone quickly followed after a few moments, even though there was still no end in sight, and Heel and Varys became impatient. Miss moved quickly, looking excited. Varys thought Miss might have a friend here, even though she said there was no one left. But she was just near the Rihanna garden area, also thinking so Miss couldn't meet anyone because the gate blocked her. Heel so engrossed in chatting that she didn't realize she had stopped and bumped into him. Back to the front, large rocks blocked Miss's path. She had no choice but to let her heel use her axe to break the rocks. It turns out that beyond the boulders is the top of the stairs that opens into a room with broken containers Miss has never seen before. Rihanna guessed that the containers were used to hold something. There were more than a dozen, but all were damaged. His Majesty covered his nose because of the strange smell. His heel also smelled it. It was a strong, chemical smell. No one looked at the wall and said no one was taking care of it. This is the Argo hidden in the wall. They are not damaged, just lacking magic. Argo is usually filled with magic when not activated, but its energy system is also cut off, so it seems that there is no active Argo at this level. He called the wall filled with new claw marks and bloodstains, felt that something was wrong here. Everyone started to stand in a circle with their backs to each other. Miss in the middle of the group continued deeper with more claw marks appearing on the wall. The presence of something became clearer, but nothing appeared, and the silence made everyone more tense. His Excellency suddenly signaled to everyone to be silent. He felt that this was where everyone held their breath, not daring to move, trusting their instincts. He drew his bow and shot an arrow straight into the ceiling. The arrow hit with a thud, and suddenly a few drops of blood dripped from above. In the darkness, the growling sound grew louder, and then the terrifying creature gradually fell from the ceiling, revealing its form. Varys exclaimed in disbelief because it was a Kra, a hybrid creature made up of various species often mentioned in mythological stories. He warned everyone to be cautious because the danger was not over yet. The invisible chimeras gradually became visible and then surrounded the group when the attacking monsters approached. Hughes immediately shot an arrow, and Varys now entered his evolved form, using wind magic to blast them, while others rushed towards Rhianna, but she blocked them with a punch. Rhianna held a weapon called Chelem Bare Knuckles, made by Mappa, and Princess Belden strengthened her fingers with lightning to strike the beast's stomach, then combined fire magic with her heel to defeat it thoroughly. On the other side, Hughes and Varys each took down a chimera just as it seemed the danger had passed. Dozens of Chima emerged from the underground chamber. Varys suggested retreating, calling both fire and ice elements simultaneously to target the Chima horde. Taking advantage of the thick smoke covering the group, they quickly escaped. She would ask Lady if this Chima was also a relic guardian like Argos. Noah did not think so because this level also had Argos, but they were not suddenly active. Suddenly, Lady pointed to a dark corner, saying there was something there. A small figure wrapped in a cloak appeared, mistaking it for a human and even saying that the person resembled Lady. She ran towards the figure to ask, suddenly feeling uncomfortable. She held her bow and warned the figure to step back before His Majesty could fully warn her about the chamra. The fierce beast hidden behind the cloak extended its large claws to grab Lady's heel. With quick reflexes, she managed to pull her Hyle out of the reach of its claws and shot 3 arrows into it. The beast roared in pain. Luckily, Lady and her heel were not injured, and they quickly ran to regroup behind her through the thick smoke. The true form of the terrifying beast emerged, its body and head resembling a lion, thick horns protruding from its forehead, and its tail a snake with a long tongue. Despite its extraordinary presence, His Majesty was not intimidated by it. He launched a direct attack towards the beast, drawing his sword from his side and delivering a powerful slash to its leg. The creature roared in pain and turned to pounce on him. The warrior from Tyres somersaulted in the air, kicking off the wall and slashing the creature's face with the speed of his noble sword. His agility was very impressive, especially advantageous in such confined space, but he would realize that the slashes on the monster's body were healing. He also realized this, but as long as it was a living creature, the hunter's badge, thanks to his enhanced senses, could detect the enemy's weak points. When he directed his sword to the side of the creature, he was surprised to find out that it was a combination of many bat-like monsters. Heads emerged from the back of the chimera, emitting a high-frequency, complex screech that was ear-piercing as it was nearby. He was stunned and thrown against the wall by the creature as Rhianna rushed to heal her teammate while Hyle synchronized their magic to create a double-intensity snowstorm aimed at the creature's chamber. It opened its mouth and unleashed a very powerful fire blast. Its heel felt like they could devour his magic and the others completely. Rhianna realized the situation was terrible when they were both surrounded by the creature. She urged Rhena to come help them while she would try to attack from the side. Miss interrupted that the fire could not be stopped even with additional support, and it would also be difficult for her to cut the chimera. Miss opened the bag she was carrying, took out a glass bottle while thinking it was time to use it as a heel, and Varys was almost defeated when suddenly something started pulling the chimera's power into a vortex. Miss had deployed an emergency magic container among the hidden Argo in the wall, but the container had been ignored for too long and was now drained. She could only let Argo absorb the magic of the chimera instead of eliminating it. The drained magic of Argo exploded, pushing Miss against the wall. She was about to rush forward, but at that moment, the chimera grew wings and knocked down anyone who tried to approach its head. A figure in a cloak appeared, speaking in a strange language to Miss, who was stunned because the chimera was a hybrid of various animals and humans. The man in the black cloak gritted his teeth, looking angry.